Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Inside Fnatic's Brush, where this time we're diving into the first round of playoffs, where Fnatic have faced Team Heretics and G2 both on Saturday and Monday. Now, as you know, Fnatic finished the regular split in an 8-1 score, pretty dominant and showing scaling and improvement across the 3 weeks. With their recent form, their first opponent, Team Heretics, shouldn't really be an issue and be expected a 2-0 win overall. And the first game is actually a good demonstration of that. First from the draft, where Fnatic actually picks very comfortable champions and a very similar composition as the one they used against Carmine Corp. Ambessa, Vi, Azir and Kai'Sa, and MikiX even throws in a very cheeky Elise that we've seen across different regions. The first game is just a classic Fnatic stomp that we've seen in recent games. Just everything is played correctly across the map. MikiX is amazing on his Elise. Of course, Oscarinin is showing great prowess on his Ambessa, and the rest of the team just clicks, takes over the map, controls the objectives, and Team Heretics really can't do or show anything throughout the 24-25 minutes. It was seriously that straightforward. At no point in the game did Team Heretics feel threatening or felt like they had an answer to anything that Fnatic was doing over the map. With a quick first game folded, Fnatic looks to jump into the second game and obviously pick different champions because of the Fearless Draft format. Once again, some very good picks with the Maokai and Rel, who are very strong right now, and Smolder that gives a scaling option into the late game. Now, this game definitely didn't start as clean as the previous one. It was actually pretty messy for the first couple of kills, where Fnatic, despite getting the first blood, actually gives some really weird kills in the mid lane and other places around the map, and it felt like Team Heretics was going to be on top for quite a bit. Thankfully for Fnatic, Team Heretics just messes about their mechanics and allows Fnatic to come back into the game from one team fight to another. Once Fnatic actually manages to even the gold and even take an advantage, well, they just do classic Fnatic stuff, where they take over the game, they are much better as a team, and overall just hands diff and brain diff Team Heretics. It looked a little bit dicey at the beginning, but Fnatic definitely knew how to come back into the game, play it steady, and be there at the right time, at the right moment, to take those team fights where Team Heretics was just slightly overextending. We did have a slight scare around the Arakan, but thankfully for us, Razork was smart enough to hit a quick Q-Smite combo to secure it just within the last seconds. With an overall convincing 2-0 over Team Heretics, it was time to head into our favourite Classico, Fnatic versus G2. Now, G2 has shown straight away from their first game that Fearless Draft is their environment, with their flexibility, their unexpected picks, with the Warwick top lane and some other stuff that we will see in this series. Of course, Fnatic made sure to prep all of this, so let's see what happened. And straight from the get-go, we're already getting some spicy picks for the first game. Mel is put on Humanoid, Corki is picked for Upset, Aurora on Caps, and obviously Pantheon again for Skumon. The small surprise obviously was the Swain in the top lane, manipulated by Broken Blade. From the early game, it's giving us the brawl that we expected. The kills are going back and forth, no team is really taking the lead, just MikiX is having an insane performance on his Poppy, almost taking the game personally, felt like, against G2. The game stays very even until that one big team fight around the mid lane, bottom river, where Fnatic actually manages to ace G2. It finally feels like Fnatic is back on top with a lot of control over the map, and they're even going into two objectives at a time, the Drake and the Arakan. However, something really weird actually happens at that moment. Upset decides to take the wave in the mid lane, and MikiX tries to interrupt the Pantheon, but for some reason doesn't use his ult while Pantheon is arming his ultimate. This unfortunately gives us a disaster scenario, where Skumon actually manages to complete his ultimate, fall from the sky and steal the Arakan. The Arakan, which was the Guardian Angel version of it, and just forces G2 to fight straight away Fnatic and have no risk of losing the team fight with that buff bonus. G2 is now back on top, which is a massive problem. Fnatic did a great job to manage to get Caps behind and make him irrelevant in the game. Unfortunately, that team fight and what happens next just brings G2 back on top, and Fnatic feel a bit hopeless overall. At one point, it actually felt like Fnatic was back. They managed to secure the Baron, but the upcoming team fights actually goes in the way of G2. It just felt like Mel has 0 damage despite being full build and level 18, and obviously Upset can't do much when you have 3 people jumping on him at the same time. Razork and Oscarinen can only do so much, and G2 just wins each team fight afterwards and closes the game despite Fnatic's good early game. A very frustrating game to lose, but time to jump into the second game straight away. On the second game draft, Oscarinen actually gets his Ambessa. Skarner is left open for some reason, but of course, G2 actually get the blind Azir pick once again, and the strong Maokai and the Warwick top lane for Broken Blade. Already in the first gang, you can feel that the team is already a bit off. A few mechanical misplays which completely miss a potential double kill in the bot lane, and then overall some confusion on how to play the map. One other main problem, it feels like G2 has a lot of survivability. The Warwick just stays in lane, very low HP, but shows no threat of dying because of his passive and his overall build. On top of that, they get the Lulu who can polymorph, shield, ultimate, and therefore also punishes the very aggressive playstyle from Fnatic in the early to mid game, keeping it very close in the 15 to 16 minutes. It's actually around that time where they take a very poor team fight, focusing the Lulu and letting the carries just wail away at Fnatic. The lack of strong burst damage actually doesn't allow them to go all in, kill a few people, and then go back, have a numbers advantage. On the contrary, G2 just kites back, uses their range, and just demolish Fnatic every time they try to go in. Another drama around Arakan pretty much seals the deal on this game, where they take very poor engages, leave Upset on an island, which felt a bit like the theme of that best of 3, and have no damage to burst down, despite Mickey X getting a pretty good engage in that team fight. Lost Arakan, G2 is just way too far ahead. And when they're far ahead, G2 just gets very confident, play better overall, and will just wrap up the game in a very quick fashion. Even with Fnatic trying to get a catch here and there, the 5v5 final team fight is just a disaster once more. G2 is much more stronger, has much more gold advantage, and overall plays better with their composition than Fnatic. It's a terrible 0-2 for Fnatic, who we were expecting to finally beat G2 in the best of format. Obviously, there's a lot of frustration from this game, from the fact that it feels that Fnatic already feels hopeless the moment they slightly fall behind against G2 and feel the need to throw Hail Mary plays when they can just control the game, play a bit slower, and use moments to catch G2 players off. Basically like they did against Team Heretics. On the other side, it felt like some picks in their sort of changed drafts didn't really answer properly G2's composition. And that's my biggest fear, personally, is that G2's capability of flexing picks, picking things outside of the box, compared to Fnatic, who's a bit more solid on standard picks, and when they're picking things like the Mel or Corki bot lane, it feels much harder for them to be as efficient and to execute properly. Two small things again I'd like to know is the fights around Arakan, which definitely feels like the big thing Fnatic needs to work on before the next best of 3s. We cannot be losing around Arakan, which really feels like it turns around the game once it gets captured. The other thing is, obviously, as some of you might know, Upset was severely ill this weekend, to the point where it was almost considered to have Gax play instead of him. That's how bad it was. In the voice comms that actually released just yesterday, you can actually hear how low Upset is in his voice comms and just how tired he feels overall, probably affecting some of his plays in the G2 game. It's very disappointing and obviously very reminiscent of the way we used to play in 2024 against G2. What I need basically to feel a bit more hopeful going forward is that the next best of 3s we just crush our opponents. It's gonna be again another gauntlet run, like Fnatic knows how to do them, but we need to be very solid, much more disciplined, because if we ever get to the final, we're probably facing G2 again. We can also consider that Carmine Corp is showing a very, very solid gameplay, and as Grab said, Fnatic vs G2 was very, very bronze. Both of these opponents that are going to be playing this weekend to get their place in the final game are going to be very, very complicated to fight in a best of 5. Specifically G2, who I feel can really dig deep into their champ pool and offer some crazy compositions. It would be really a shame for Fnatic after the great regular split that they've shown to not be able to go all the way to the finals and actually finally lift a trophy. I'd be actually personally very worried if we don't win this split, as they would show a very weird trend going into the rest of the season and also missing out on the first international tournament. We all know what this team is capable of. They've shown incredible capabilities across the regular split in their first best of 3s, and if it's just a case of Upset being ill and affecting the gameplay of the team because of his presence in the voice comms, then hopefully him improving his health going into the further games will actually bring us the Fnatic that we've seen at the beginning of the year. We stay hopeful, fingers are crossed, and we will have to see who we're facing next, either BDS or Vitality. But that's going to be all for me, guys. Let me know what you thought about these first best of 3s for Fnatic, specifically the game against G2. Are you guys still hopeful? Have you already thrown the towel? Has your frustration finally dwindled away and you're ready to face the next team? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye.